Black Americans, or as we're falsely called African Americans, have been on the receiving end of the largest example of identity theft in this world's history. Black Americans are not the descendants of Africans like as is taught, with no genetic, archaeological, or historical evidence to even prove that we are African like they say. But what genetic, archaeological, and historical evidence does prove is that Black Americans, or as we're falsely called African Americans, are in no way African, but are the descendants of the original swarthy indigenous Europeans that inhabited the continent of Europe for over 1,500 years. The original people of the continent of Europe were black, swarthy Negroes, but they were not Africans, they were Israelites, specifically from the tribe of Judah, which is the same tribe that Christ came from. So before we get into the historical sources, we have to go over a few scriptures first. So Judah was the fourth son of Jacob, whom the Most High God later renamed Israel, being the father or progenitor of the nation of Israel, or the children of Israel. Judah was his fourth son. But we're going to be talking about the grandsons and great-grandsons of Judah, who are the ancestors and progenitors of the people now falsely called African American or Black Americans. We come from the tribe of Judah. People think that the Bible is just fairy tales and David and Goliath and Adam and Eve and all that. But the Bible is a very real book with very real historical accounts that are spoken of in other historical or secular sources. At the end of the day, the Bible is a history book. So here we're in Genesis 46:12, and it reads, "And the sons of Judah, and Onan, and Shelah, and Pharez, and Zerah," which is also pronounced Zara. So we're going to be talking about Zerah or Zara in this video. Now Pharez is the line where the Judean kings came from. David, Solomon, and Christ came through Judah's son Pharez. But Judah and Zara were twin brothers. And Zara is the father or progenitor of the original swarthy Negroid Europeans. One of the first places his descendants ended up migrating to was Greece and Troy, being the original Trojans and Spartans. Those were Judites from the tribe of Zara, descendants of Judah's son Zara. But let's move on. So here we're in 1 Chronicles 2 verse 6, and we're going to read over some of the grandsons of Judah. These are the sons of his son Zerah or Zara. And the sons of Zara, Zimri, and Ethan, and Haman, and Calcol, and Dara, 5 of them in all. So Zara had 5 sons. These are all Black Negroid Israelites from the tribe of Judah, all progenitors or ancestors of the people now falsely called African American. We are not African in any way, shape, or form. All of these 5 men are very, very important and very influential figures that not only founded nations that are the foundation of civilization and society as we know it today, they are the foundation of our nation as the so-called African American. These are our progenitors. We've gone over Judah, we've gone over Zara, and we've gone over Judah's grandsons, the sons of Zara. Now we're in this book called Judah's Scepter in chapter 1, and we're going to see where these swarthy Negroid black men, Israelites from the tribe of Judah, where they migrated and where they founded, where they ended up, the nations that they populated and founded. Because there's this false, over-exaggerated narrative taught by specifically these Black Hebrew Israelite camps, which are really Freemasons. They're no different than these megachurch pastors. They're no different than a T.D. Jakes, a Joel Osteen, a Billy Graham, that all of the tribe of Judah or all of the southern kingdom fled into Africa. That is a false narrative. Now, of course, scripture does say that there are a remnant of Israelites in Africa, but that is a minority. Because these Black Hebrew Israelite camps are Freemasonic and they are no different than these other lying churches, these other lying pastors, they want to, and their mission is to keep the falsely called African American, which is the tribe of Judah, focused on Africa, which is not our homeland and is not where our history is. Our history is in Europe. All of those European surnames that we have, those last names, are not from a slave master. We came from Europe with those names. For one thing, slavery wasn't about race. It was about classism and who was rich and who was poor. There were white slave owners that had black and white slaves. There were black slave owners that had black and white slaves. So we did not get our names from slavery. A large plantation back in the days of slavery had maybe 25 slaves. So if the slave owner was a Collins, well, shouldn't the only blacks leaving that plantation be called or have the surname Collins? But there are hundreds, even thousands of different surnames among black folks. The math isn't adding up. If the largest plantation only had 25 people, 25 slaves, which were black and white people, and there was one slave owner who was a Johnson, everyone there should be a Johnson. If we got our surnames from slave masters, black people should only have like 20 different surnames among us, but we don't. Those are our surnames and have been for hundreds of years because we came directly from Europe already. Jacksons and McCormicks and McIntoshes and Collins and O'Connells. We came over Rosses and McNairs, Washingtons and Williams. Those are not slave masters' names. But anyway, like I said, we're in this book called Judah's Scepter, and we're going to see where these sons of Judah, where these grandsons of Judah, rather, migrated to, becoming the original swarthy Negro Europeans. When I say in my videos that Europe has only been a white continent for about 100 years, this is what I'm talking about. If I move to Japan, that doesn't make me Japanese. Just because a Caucasian came out of the caves of the Caucasus Mountains and moved to Ireland in 1908 does not make him Irish. When for 1,000 years prior to him, there were swarthy Negroid Israelites from the tribe of Judah inhabiting that land. We need to get off of Africa. Judah's Scepter, Chapter 1. It's a great book. I highly recommend you read it. The migration of the Zara tribes. We know who Zara is. Zara was a black man from the tribe of Judah. He was the son of Judah, the grandson of Jacob or Israel. The migration of the Zara tribes are put into 3 groups and 2 main migration routes. We did not migrate into Africa like the Black Hebrew Israelite camps teach. We migrated into Europe because by the time 70 AD rolled around, there were already civilizations of Israelites scattered throughout Europe that had been there for 1,000 years. Up at that point, already at that point, there were civilizations, cities, towns, bases, you could even say, of Israelites that were already in, specifically and especially, Spain and the British Isles. There were already Israelites there by the time Christ was born by 70 AD. We migrated into Europe. When we fled from the Romans, from the Assyrians, we went into Europe because our people were already there. Read Acts 29. We were already there, already in Europe. The first group is Calcol's sons. Calcol, we read over Calcol, grandson of Judah, who became the Milesians, the Hyksos of Egypt, the Iberians of Spain, Irish and Scot tribes who made their migration by ocean. Calcol, grandson of Judah, a black man from the tribe of Judah. His descendants became the Milesians, the Hyksos of Egypt, the Iberians of Spain, and the Irish and Scottish tribes who made their migration by ocean. We're not African. We didn't flee to Africa. All those Irish and Scottish surnames are our names. The second group comes out of Dardanus' sons. Now, Dardanus, we read that Zara had a son named Dara. Dara was his Hebrew name. In the Greek, he was called Dardanus. The second group comes out of Dardanus' sons that became the Trojans, the Celts, the Franks, Scandinavia, and part of the British Isles. All those people that they say were white, did they ever show you any proof, genetics, archaeological evidence? Did they ever exhume any bodies to prove that they were Caucasian? No. They just repeat a narrative and show a picture with no proof and spend billions of dollars year after year to push the lie that they are European and we're African. It is a lie through and through. We are not African. We didn't come from Africa. None of these people were Caucasoid. They were Negroid. So Dara's sons, or Dardanus' sons, became the Trojans, Black Judites, the Celts, Black Judites, the Franks, Black Judites, the Scandinavians, Black Judites. These are the ancestors of the modern day Black Americans, and also Caribbean Blacks. They're not African either. Jamaica is the country where you find the most amount of Irish last names outside of Ireland, and 98% of Jamaica is Black. And part of the British Isles, the original Britons, Black Judites. The third group came out of Zimri and Colchis' sons, 2 other sons of Zara, 2 other Black Judites from the tribe of Judah, the same tribe as Christ, who became the Scythians/Scots, the Saxons, and Nusubians of Scandinavia that migrated by land north and west into Europe. All of these people, this is the real history of the so-called African American. This is why they hate us so much. They couldn't exist without us. They need our ideas on how to do their hair, on how to dress, on how to look, on how to dance, on how to walk, on how to speak. They need us to exist to even have a history to claim. If we didn't exist, they would have no history because they stole the Black Americans' history and claimed it as their own. They hate us because they ate us, and they hate us because they need us. They didn't claim Asians' history or Latinos' history or Arabs' history. They claimed Black Americans' history and said, okay, now you're an African slave. But we're reading here firsthand historical accounts that say that all of these people of these nations were Black Negroid Israelites from the tribe of Judah. Europe has been a white continent for 100 years maximum, 200 years maximum. So Zimri and Colchis' sons, these two grandsons of Judah and their descendants, became the Scythians/Scots, Saxons, the Suebians of Scandinavia that migrated north and west into Europe. They could all speak and understand different variations of the Gaelic language, with its roots being Hebrew. The roots of the Gaelic language is Hebrew. Now, why doesn't barely anyone in Ireland and Scotland speak Gaelic to this day? Because in the 16 and 17 and 1800s, they deported all the original Black, Scottish, and Irish that spoke Gaelic. That's why nobody speaks it in the land today. Because the ones that did, y'all deported them to the Caribbean and the American South. Therefore, Zara got multiplied and spread across the lands of the Mediterranean and Europe, and in each a royal prince made of his descendants. Now, this is a letter written in 1755 by Benjamin Franklin. Now, y'all believe everything else Benjamin Franklin says, and everything else he says he discovered. Y'all believe everything else that came out of supposedly Benjamin Franklin's mouth. Now, let's see what he said about what the Europeans look like. In 1755, let's see how Benjamin Franklin described the Europeans as having looked. Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionably very small. They have never been the majority. Even today, they're less than 7% of this world's population. They have never been the majority. They've always been the most sickly, the most weak. They've always had the lowest birth rates. They have never been the majority. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. Now, little tidbit there. He's saying America, he's saying that everyone in America is also black or swarthy, because that's what swarthy means. So those Asian people that are saying they're Native American, they're Asian. They're not Native American. In 1755, Benjamin Franklin said the Native Americans, that everyone in America is black or tawny, which means brown. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. So 1755, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally what we call a swarthy complexion. He's saying that they're swarthy. They have a swarthy complexion. Now let's get the definition of swarthy. Swarthy, being of a dark hue or dusky complexion. Tawny, in warm climates, the complexion of men is universally swarthy or black. The Moors, Spaniards, and Italians are more swarthy than the French, Germans, and English. So to say more swarthy, that means the French, Germans, and English are swarthy to an extent, but not as swarthy as the Moors, Spaniards, and Italians that are in a more warm climate. But anyway, swarthy means to be of a dark hue or dusky complexion. It means to be black. At the top of your screen, we see swarth being of a dark hue or moderately black. Swarthiness means tawniness of a dusky or dark complexion. Being of a dark hue or a dusky complexion. To be swarthy means to be black. Black as the swarthy African. So swarthy is black. And in this dictionary from 1828, it's saying swarthy means to be black or dark of complexion like an African. So Benjamin Franklin in 1755 is saying that all these people from all these different European nations are moderately black, are dark of complexion, or have a dusky complexion, that they have a dark brown melanated skin complexion. That all those sons of Zara, all those black men, all those descendants of Judah of the Bible migrated to Europe and populated and founded all those nations. So we know who was in those lands. Benjamin Franklin in 1755 said that all the people in Europe are black or swarthy or dark brown or melanated. You do the math. And they weren't Africans. They were black Israelites from the tribe of Judah. They were the sons of Zara, the grandsons of Judah, who ultimately descend from Jacob, the Most High God's chosen man, his chosen seed, his chosen lineage, Jacob. They were black and they were Israelites, not Africans. And those swarthy, black, dusky, tawny people that inhabited the continent of Europe for over 1,500 years, they were from the tribe of Judah and had nothing to do with Africa in any way, shape, or form. Those are the ancestors of the people now called Black American or African American. Our ancestors came directly from Europe, black and Israelites.